Is the natural way of learning foreign languages monolingual or rather bilingual? Well, we learn how to communicate in a foreign language by actually communicating in that language and not by constantly using another one, learning by doing. This is as fundamental as it is banal. It's a truism, a platitude almost. Teach English through English. No one in his right mind will deny that. But in an effort to make teachers conduct classrooms in the foreign language, mainstream philosophy has thrown out the baby with the bathwater. I claim that, paradoxically, systematic, controlled mother tongue support of the right kind does not hinder but help to establish an authentic foreign language atmosphere. The direct principle, the monolingual principle, is a delusion anyway. It's an intrinsic neurological impossibility, so the word direct is somewhat misleading. Even when there is no native word heard, comprehension is initially bilingual, as brain research, that is, word recognition experiments, have shown. Even though the students followed instructions in English and expected English words, native words popped up on their mental screen, as it were, however briefly, before being deactivated. They intrude automatically. They impose themselves if we want it or not. In a deep sense, we only learn language once. It's the language we have breathed and lived and grown up in which lays the foundation for all other languages we might want to learn. It's vitally important that we absorb the implications of this fact. Rather than a liability, L1 is the most valuable resource, indeed the critical one, that a talking child brings to the classroom. If we acknowledge that, the mother tongue taboo, the cardinal error that has crippled foreign language teaching all too long, is rectified. Effective bilingual techniques will be reintroduced in the classroom. Yes, we only learn language once. Years of daily encounters with the first language have given the children foundational skills which they need for school. Years of mother tongue input and interactions in real-life situations have shaped our minds in ways that are overwhelmingly helpful for the acquisition of new languages. There is a five-fold endowment that mother tongues bring to the foreign language classroom. First, as they grow into their mother tongue, children have become skilled intention readers and communicators. They have the expressive means for a magnificent array of speech intentions, using their voice along with mimes and gestures, that is, linguistic and paralinguistic means. They can ask, accuse, contradict, say no, insist, comfort, insult others, and so on and so on. And they bring all these communicative competencies, their social talent, and emotional intelligence to the task of foreign language learning. If they didn't, foreign language teachers could pack it in straight away. Second, children have learned to articulate and develop their voice, coordinating various speech muscles, etc., and establishing direct neuronal connections between hearing and speaking. Third, they have learned to conceptualize their world and have fully grasped the symbolic function of language. You know how fundamental this is. Mere vibrations of the air can represent persons, things, and actions. That's almost magic. And children know that and can handle it. So no child starts a second language with a clean slate. It's already been written on. By the time they come into our classrooms, they have concepts and words for whole arenas of experience: food, clothing, family and playmates, plants and animals, television, hobbies and pastimes, and last but not least, number. Number is a case in point. Understanding numbers is fundamental. By comparison, differences between how various languages count and compose numbers are negligible. For instance, the reverse order 21 versus 120 in German. That's peanuts. So rather than reconceptualize the world, we need to extend our concepts with any necessary cultural adjustment or refinement. This is also what brain research tells us. We've got to use established neural pathways and then extend and modify them. Always connect. This too is glaringly obvious, and not just the fact that in order to learn a language, we must use it as much as possible. However, teachers who deal with closely related languages, such as German and English, which have many words and phrases in common, are seldom aware of the enormous extent to which the mother tongue contributes to learning. But take languages that missionaries had to learn in the rainforests. Here, the monolingual principle spells catastrophe.
Let me quote from God's Word in Man's Language by Eugene A. Nida from the American Bible Society. It's a powerful graphic report on the work of missionaries and Bible translators. The task of mastering a language is not so difficult if there is someone in the tribe who speaks some foreign language which the missionary also knows. But if there is not as much as a single word in common, the initial stages of language learning may seem agonizingly difficult. Here is an example of a missionary who went to live and work among the Valiente Indians of Panama. He did not know a word of their language, and they knew nothing of his. He tried to elicit the name, by gesticulation and pidgin Spanish, of a little boy who was always around to help him. The little fellow replied Tikonyaka, and from then on he would call out Tikonyaka when he wanted the boy to come. But soon he discovered that the people were laughing and also calling him Tikonyaka. It was only much later that he discovered the real meaning of Tikonyaka. It was actually a phrase meaning, I have no name. In this tribe, a small child doesn't have a personal name, but is known as the child of such and such a man or woman. Nida also writes, without some common language, only a trial and error method of probing the meanings and uses of words can reveal the intricate and strange structures of the other language. One must sit down with natives and begin to ask for words, sometimes without so much as being able to say, what do you call this? It may take weeks to stumble across this key phrase. So, in the rainforest, the direct method is agonizingly difficult. And so it was in China. In her doctoral dissertation, Tong Wu reports about early missionaries in China. Neither polyglots nor ordinary missionaries learned the Chinese language without the participation of their mother tongue. A lot of diaries and memoirs written at that time revealed that one of the most urgent things to do upon their arrival in China was to look for a personal tutor or linguistic informant with at least some sort of pidgin English. This basic bilingual help was highly appreciated by the early groups of foreigners in China because they learned from experience that a monolingual approach could only make their linguistic survival more difficult. What am I getting at? What's my point? Well, it was claimed that the direct method was natural and easy. My answer is no. Missionaries and ethnologists alike were always looking out for some linguistic informant, a native speaker who, through trading contacts, had some pidgin English, pidgin French, or pidgin Spanish. They would then ask him for words and phrases in order to get access to the language, to get a foot in the door, so to speak. With them, it was the most natural thing in the world to ask for a translation. Last but not least, There is the common sense of ordinary people who do the right thing, in ignorance of and unperturbed by didactic theories. Take the testimony of Sister Elisabeth Holfert, who for years cared selflessly for people in the Arab quarter of the city of Strasbourg. When she was called to her work, Sister Elisabeth, who had no prior linguistic training whatsoever, immediately went to see the head of the Berber clan. I immediately started learning the Berber language. Every day I went to the clan chief and asked him, "What's it called? Give me your arm," or "I won't hurt you," all the expressions you need as a nurse. I wrote them down phonetically, memorized them, and recited them to him the next day to be corrected. So I ended up speaking Berber without almost no accent, which earned me the nickname La Sœur Arabe, the Arab sister. Who would argue that this way of using translations isn't natural?
Back to the ways in which the mother tongue contributes to learning foreign languages. Here is a fourth gift from our mother tongue. Preschool children have acquired an intuitive understanding of grammar. The best window on the logic of a foreign language is a naturally acquired language, one for which we have developed a real intuitive feel by actually living it. Mother tongue grammars have paved the way to foreign grammars. Let me give you a few examples. What could teachers do with learners who didn't have the concepts of space and time? Children need quite a lot of language input before they start understanding time and use time words correctly, such as before, after, tomorrow, yesterday, etc. Or take the verb give. A child learns that give, or French donner, means geben. This is new. But in what ways does the mother tongue assist the child in using give in English or donner in a French sentence? The child expects that there is a giver and a person whom something is given to, as well as an object that is handed over. And this object may be immaterial, such as words, in expressions like give advice. Furthermore, the act of giving implies that it could be in the past, etc., etc. In other words, the grammar of give is there already, as if served on a silver tray. As children, we have accumulated a huge cognitive capital for the rest of our lives, usually in the mother tongue. Here is another example. How can one expect students to understand the essence of the continuous aspect in English if they didn't have the notion of incompletion or duration on one hand and habitual actions on the other hand? And it's so easy to explain the difference between present simple and the present progressive by means of translation. What are you reading? Was liest du denn da? What do you read? Was liest du denn so? I'm writing a novel. Ich schreibe an einem Roman. What do you write? I write novels. Was machen Sie so? Ich schreibe Romane. One more example. What about possession and possessive adjectives? We all take it for granted that we can say my head and my father as well as my garden. But we also mentally prepared for languages that use a different possessive for my garden, because it makes sense to distinguish between alienable possessions, which may have a new owner, and inalienable possession. By the time the child comes to school to learn a foreign language, most of these basic cognitive concepts have been acquired. We need not go the same long way to grammar a second time. It's because all languages have evolved means of expressing abstract ideas such as possession, number, condition, agent or doer, instrument, negation, possibility, obligation, and a host of others. No matter how the languages do this, one natural language is enough to open the door for the grammars of other languages. Children can't define pronouns, but they can handle them. They can't define adjectives, but they can recognize and use them. This is because, in a way, all languages dance the same dance, or in Steven Pinker's words, all languages are cut from the same cloth. And now the fifth endowment. When starting a new language, children have often acquired the secondary skills of reading and writing, which can be enormously helpful in learning another foreign language. So, this is the fivefold endowment of our mother tongue. The mother tongue is the greatest asset any human being brings to the task of foreign language learning. It's the sharpest tool to cut into the foreign language and reveal its anatomy. The mother tongue should be made use of accordingly in carefully crafted bilingual techniques. The mother tongue, mother of languages. To sum up, it's all there already. It has taken children years to obtain the cognitive, communicative, and grammatical competencies which make instruction possible in the first place, be it math, geography, or another language. Such skills and knowledge sources are the base camp from which we all set out to conquer new language territories. It makes excellent biological sense for a new language to piggyback on this open channel of communication. All this has been largely ignored by the monolingual teaching philosophy. Teachers should exploit these cognitive resources rather than ignore them. It would indeed be sheer madness to cut learners off from them. If learners didn't make these, or most of these connections by themselves, foreign language teachers could pack it in straight away. So again, if learners did not use this support all by themselves in their minds, foreign language teachers wouldn't get anywhere. All this amounts to a true paradigm shift because the monolingual approach was the perceived didactical correctness for so many years and in so many countries. It was hailed as the natural method. It has now been turned upside down. Mother tongue support touches upon all the major domains of foreign language teaching: vocabulary, grammar, text, communication, emotional aspects of learning, even pronunciation. Unlike many others, I am not just pleading for a more flexible, less rigid attitude towards own language use, but I'm arguing for a radical departure from what I believe is just a face-saving compromise, with small concessions to some mother tongue support. At the same time, I claim that a well-targeted, systematic exploitation of the explanatory and diagnostic potential of learners' own languages will not hinder but help to establish the foreign language as the working language of the classroom, and of course we all know how important that is. Thank you for listening.